Our second speaker is Dr. Mateusz Majman. He received his PhD in Jewish history from the Ludwig Maximilian University for his dissertation on the collective memory and oral history of the Holocaust among the Mountain Jews. His research interests include Holocaust studies, Caucasology, and Israel studies. Research conducted by Dr. Majman received support from numerous institutions, including the German Academic Exchange Service, the Ernst Ludwig Ehrlich Scholarship Fund, the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum, Yad Vashem, the Russian Academy of Sciences, and the Jewish Museum and Tolerance Center. Please, Dr. Majman.
First of all, thank you very much for this introduction. All right, here is the presentation, so I think we may start. My first question, can you hear me well? Yes, you can hear me. All right, that's the crucial thing. Okay, so good afternoon, and thank you all for coming to my presentation. And I'm honored to be able to share with you today a portion of the results of my recently concluded doctoral research. And in my talk, I will discuss the various forms of commemoration of the Holocaust among Caucasus Jews living in Israel. So let us begin with the fact that at the time when immigrants from the Caucasus were arriving in Israel in the 1990s and early 2000s, Israeli authorities did not recognize members of this community as Holocaust survivors. The omission reflected an earlier tendency in Israeli society to view the Holocaust as a uniquely Ashkenazi Jewish tragedy. The Israeli government relied only on a list of former ghettos prepared by German and Austrian authorities in the framework of intergovernmental cooperation. However, the Nalchik ghetto, where the Mountain Jews lived during the Second World War, was not included in this list, so its residents could not expect a state survivor's pension and could not apply for German compensation. In 2008, this interpretation of the law triggered a lively dispute in Israeli society regarding the definition of a Holocaust survivor and the eligibility for financial support the survivor's status entails. The starting point of this dispute was the passage of a law in the Knesset in March 2008 that increased financial support for needy Holocaust survivors. According to this law, each person who had survived the ghetto, concentration camp or labor camp and did not receive a monthly pension from Israel, Germany or another country was now eligible to receive a monthly support of 1,000 shekels. However, it turned out that survivors from the Caucasus were excluded from this group because the Israeli authorities did not officially recognize the war experiences as part of the common Holocaust history. This lack of recognition on the government side led to a lively discussion within the community of survivors and their families, who eventually decided to claim their rights in court. In court, they were represented by Tel Aviv lawyer and notary David Yadid, who specializes in the legal field of the Holocaust. Yadid worked on 3 fronts. He simultaneously sought recognition from the German authorities, the Claims Conference, and the Israeli Ministry of Finance that the Jews of Nalchik were victims of the Holocaust and that the Jewish Kolonka was a ghetto. First, his office conducted historical research, including collecting testimonies from survivors. Based on the collected evidence, lawsuits were filed simultaneously in several Israeli district courts. After unsuccessful attempts in the first and second instance, Yadid finally turned to Israel's Supreme Court. In late, the previous one. Number 2. No, this number 2, sorry. Okay, right. So let's continue. So in late 2012, the Supreme Court recommended that the Ministry of Finance recognize the Jews of Nalchik as Holocaust survivors. And eventually the ministry accepted the court's recommendation on the matter, and as of 2013, some 500 Mountain Jews in Israel were entitled to compensation. And gaining recognition as full members of the community of Holocaust victims and survivors improved the material situation of Caucasus Jews. It also strengthened their sense of belonging to Israeli society, on whose margins they had lived for more than 2 decades. Additionally, this change caused an increase in the level of knowledge and interest in the subject of the Holocaust as a common Jewish experience among members of the community. This qualitative shift is reflected, for example, in the mass participation of mountain Jews in the commemorations of the Holocaust and Heroes' Remembrance Day, known as Yom HaShoah in Hebrew. Today, Yom HaShoah has a special meaning for many mountain Jews. It is not only a day of commemoration of the greatest trauma to the nation to which they feel they belong, but also a moment of personal remembrance of their ancestors. On the other hand, Israeli society appears less keen to commemorate the Holocaust experience of the mountain Jews. In Israel, only one memorial is dedicated to the mountain Jews murdered during the Holocaust. The memorial was erected in Hadera on December 10, 2005 at the entrance to the local municipal cemetery. Now we will see here it is. So this is the memorial in Hadera. Municipal cemetery. It consists of 2 stelae with engraved Hebrew text. The first one is dedicated to the Jewish soldiers of the Red Army from the North Caucasus, and the second one commemorates the mountain Jews who were exterminated in Międzyskoje and Bogdanovka. So what we just discussed, the 2 cases of the mountain Jewish collective funds where Germans murdered the mountain Jewish population in late 1942. The mountain Jews living in Hadera commemorate Yom HaShoah at this memorial. Although in Israeli culture, this holiday is associated only with the victims and survivors of the Holocaust, the ceremonies at the cemetery in Hadera have an additional symbolic dimension. Participants who deliver official speeches commemorate both the victims of the Holocaust themselves and the fallen Jewish Red Army soldiers and their families to whom one of the stelae is dedicated. So this was supposed to be number 2, so maybe we could go to the next one, please. So we can see the commemoration. Hope so. Yeah, here it is. So here we can see such a ceremony commemorating both the Holocaust, the victims of the Holocaust and the Red Army soldiers. So this form of commemoration, which takes into account both the victims of the Holocaust and the Jewish soldiers of the Red Army, highlights the complexity of the Caucasian community's wartime experience. While the Holocaust affected only a relatively small number of its members, the Great Patriotic War, as the Second World War is called in Russian-speaking countries and among Russian diasporas around the world, remains a universal experience for post-Soviet immigrants, including Caucasus Jews. Celebrations associated with the most important Soviet and Russian national holiday, Victory Day, often have a similar dualistic character. We can have the one with the veterans. So it was number 2, I think. No, the number 2. Yeah, here it is. Thank you. So the Victory Day celebrations in Israel do not differ significantly from their original Soviet form. So in every major Israeli city, the schedule is very similar, and the organizers draw heavily on the tried and tested Soviet and Russian models. So the programs include speeches highlighting the extraordinary merits of the Red Army. Just a bottle. Okay. Thanks. More thanks. Thank you. All right. And the role of Jewish Red Army soldiers in the war effort. And as for the presence of the Caucasian community in Victory Day celebrations, grassroots initiatives to increase the visibility of this group have grown significantly in recent years. For example, on May 6, 2015, the Mountain Jewish Cultural Center in Hadera hosted a commemorative evening at Kibbutz Gan Shmuel to celebrate the 70th anniversary of Victory Day. Never before, and thus for never again, has the Mountain Jewish community celebrated on such a scale. It's of course connected with the anniversary, that it was 70 years since the end of the war. The event was also unique due to its performative character that included elements of local history. On this occasion, a group of activists from the Mountain Jewish community presented a musical performance entitled Bogdanovka, Backyard of the Mountain Jews. The plot of the concert was inspired by the fate of the Mountain Jews from Bogdanovka and Ludwig, victims of the Holocaust and soldiers of the Red Army. The performance contained elements of the culture of the Mountain Jews. For example, when one of the performers is drafted into the army, his fiancée mourns him by reciting traditional Mountain Jewish laments, Yiriyeh. In another scene, an amputee soldier returning from the front tries to dance the Lezginka with his beloved. The show's authors presented an actual scene from the Ludwig ghetto. In the synagogue, the elders are thinking how to save 2 Torah scrolls from destruction. Then they decide to bury it in the Jewish cemetery. When they encounter a German patrol, the mourners convince the Germans that they are burying an old lady who died of typhoid fever. The evening ended with a concert by the famous Mountain Jewish poet and singer Yefrem Amiranov, who performed one of his most famous songs dedicated to the victims of the Bogdanovka massacre, including his relatives. Several hundred people watched the concert organized on a grand scale. It was the first cultural event with a program based entirely on the wartime experiences of the Mountain Jews that was aimed at the general public. The program differed from those of similar events mainly in the choice of source material. Instead of relying on the biographies of well-known figures from the history of European Jews, such as Oskar Schindler or Ilena Sendel, the creators of the show decided to refer to the lesser-known experiences of their ethnic group. In this way, they not only created a work unique in its originality, but also contributed to spreading knowledge about the history of the Mountain Jews, especially among the members of the community itself and also among all audience members. Similar celebrations under the slogan "No one is forgotten, nothing is forgotten" occurred at the Caucasian Community Center, also in Hadera, on May 8, 2018. Try to find it. It should be number 6, probably. Let's give it a try. No, not number 6. Let's try number 7 then. It used to be okay, now it's... Yes. No, this is not the other one that we'll discuss later, so now number 8. Let's try. No, this is Frida Yusufova. But, okay. Could you try the other one, 9? Yeah, because it used to be in order, now it's not in order anymore. Yeah, here it is. Perfect. So here we can see the celebration in Hadera. That's my lecture took title from its title. So, and during the celebration, former chairman of the Union of the Mountain Jews in Israel, Maximilian Emmanuel, said, quote, "Victory Day is one of the most important holidays for the Jewish people. Only thanks to the efforts, heroism, and amazing bravery of the soldiers who fought against the fascist invaders, the Jews were able to find a new homeland and establish their own country, Israel." End quote. Emmanuel was not alone in making a connection between the sacrifices of Soviet soldiers in the fight against Nazi Germany and the establishment of the State of Israel 3 years after the end of World War II. It has been quite a common trope in official speeches during Victory Day celebrations in Israel. As a rule, additional emphasis is placed on the uniqueness of the situation in which the Jewish soldiers of the Red Army found themselves. On the one hand, they fought to defend the Soviet homeland. On the other, they helped save the European Jewry from total annihilation through their heroic attitudes. Significantly, Israeli ceremonies highlight the personal experiences of ordinary Mountain Jewish soldiers instead of glorifying individual heroes such as Isai Ilazarov or Haskil Pinchasov. The shift to a personal perspective. Okay, so this shift to a personal perspective is a fundamental change from the heroic narratives of the Soviet era, in which the vast majority of Jewish soldiers were treated as a nameless collective, of course, according to official Soviet policy. And another initiative of the Caucasian community is the May 9 celebrations at the Ladies and Gentlemen Club in Sderot. This was one of the previous, it was number 5, maybe. No? 4? It was 4. No. Okay, here we have groups of survivors that I discussed entering one of the local courts in Israel. Let's try the previous one then. No. Okay. They used to be in order. This morning at least.
No worries.
Let's find the lady. Let's look for the ladies. There's like one lady lighting candle in the water club. I don't remember which one.
Açmadıklar hansısa aç tez-tez
Yeah.
mənə göstər.
So just let's try to look for it. Yeah, here she is. Okay, thank you again. Okay, so here we can see the celebration of May 9 at the Ladies and Gentlemen Club in Sderot. And the club was founded in March 2009 under the auspices of the local Caucasian community center called Dohot. And it's headed by Zinaida Mushailova, a native of Narchik. And every year on May 9, celebrations are organized for the veterans and their families. And this includes treats, dances, military songs, and the screening of Soviet documentaries about the Great Patriotic War, and the lighting of memorial candles. And as Mushailova admits, she also incorporates elements related to both the war and the Holocaust into the program of Victory Day celebrations. So, like for Mushailova, for many mountain Jews in Israel nowadays, Victory Day celebrations are inextricably linked to the Holocaust. And this connection seems to, I would say, emerge after they immigrated to Israel through the interpenetration of two previously distinct cultures of memory and commemoration, resulting in a new hybrid post-immigration collective memory. And in the Soviet Union, this type of commemoration was shared only among survivors and their families. So for example, those who visited Bogdanovka on the 9th of May, also on Victory Day, which was a tradition among some of the mountain Jews living in Nalchik, whose relatives perished in Bogdanovka. Since I have only 5 minutes, I will move right now to some conclusions. I also wanted to discuss the question of another source or opportunity for young generations of the mountain Jews to discover their history of the Holocaust of their sub-ethnic group, which is of course participating in Masashovashim trips to the Caucasus. They're also organized by the local grassroots initiatives, but maybe let's go to conclusion. So I would say that to conclude, all the examples cited above attest to the rather vital place that the Holocaust occupies in the collective memory of Caucasus Jews as an ethnic group and as citizens of Israel. And over time, the memory of the Holocaust shifted from the realm of individual, family, and local memory to the realm of collective memory. And the mountain Jewish community in Israel has succeeded in involving local authorities, non-governmental organizations, the media, and community institutions in commemorating their experiences during the Holocaust. The goals of these initiatives are many. On the one hand, they emphasize the importance of remembering the survivors and the victims and aim not only to elicit sympathy for the victims, but also to preserve their memory. Israeli-born mountain Jews who participate in such projects are likely not only to better understand the past of their ethnic group as part of world Jewry, but also to develop an awareness of their local and regional heritage. Activities commemorating the mountain Jewish victims of the Holocaust have a broad local dimension. Nevertheless, grassroots educational activities can only be effective if befitting specialists are involved and appropriate financial resources are available to address the educational challenges associated with the Holocaust. Without the support of international organizations, governments, and local administrations, it will not be possible to continue these activities or to carry them out on a larger scale. Without full support for this work from people and institutions of power and well-designed cooperative plans, local Holocaust educational endeavors could be marginalized and eventually abandoned. Thus, it seems that the development of international programs of commemoration and education about the Holocaust experience in the mountain Jewish community is one of the most critical challenges for the near future. Furthermore, the question of the future of Holocaust memory should be raised. It is how should the atrocities from the past be presented to future generations. Currently, when the number of eyewitnesses to the Holocaust is decreasing day by day, and soon not even the last generation of survivors will be able to tell their story, it is crucial to reach out to the younger generation who have been completely disconnected from the events of the Holocaust by the passage of time. The changing status of memory and reflection on it is influenced by contemporary phenomena of mediatization, the transformation of historical culture, the construction of perceptions of the past, and the consolidation of its collective memory through mass media messages. For most young people, the internet is the primary source of knowledge, and the content found there shapes their everyday lives and defines a particular way of thinking and audience identity. For this reason, it is essential that the memory of the Holocaust reaches the young generation of the Mountain Jews, for example, through social networks. However, this requires deeper thinking about adopting a new model of memory that considers the many possible narratives about the Holocaust. Especially in communities as small as Caucasus Jews, education should prepare the young generation to assume the role of heirs to the testimonies or new witnesses. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Majman. It was very enlightening for me. I learned a lot of things.